Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. In this lecture we again would talk about punctuation. Actually this is part 2 of learning the rules of punctuation. Before we start with today's lesson, I would like to share with the review of the previous learning. In the previous lecture we learned what is punctuation, why to use punctuation. I also introduced you to some common punctuation marks. After that, in that lecture, I shared with you detailed rules of the use of certain punctuation marks. The punctuation marks that we covered in the previous lecture were full stop, comma, and semicolon. To refresh your memory about the rules related to those, I would just recapitulate the basic rules of these 3 punctuation marks. The first punctuation mark that we discussed was full stop. Mainly a full stop is used at the end of a sentence that is given in the form of a statement. I also compared a full stop to the traffic light that is red. A red traffic light tells us to stop completely. It means one part of the journey is completed and after that we start the journey again. In the same way, when we use a full stop, it indicates that the journey of one idea or one thought is completed. The writer has to start afresh after that. Moving onwards to the use of comma, I shared more than a dozen of rules of using a comma. Comma is a very common punctuation mark that is used in the writing of English. However, there are many errors made by the users of comma because of their ignorance. I shared some rules with you. The main rule for the use of a comma is that it is used to create a small pause. If you remember, in the previous lecture I compared it to a yellow blinking light that blinks very frequently, indicating a very little pause. Commas are also used to categorize things, items, people, etc. Commas are also used to separate words or word groups when they are given in a series within a sentence. Sometimes comma is also used as a replacement for certain conjunctions such as and. Especially when 2 adjectives are used for something or for some person. In that case, a comma can be used as a replacement or as a substitute for and between the 2 adjectives that are used. Moving onwards to the third mark of punctuation that we learned in the previous class, semicolon. I would say that semicolon resembles a yellow light again, a blinking yellow light that indicates a comparatively longer pause as compared to a comma. The rules of using a semicolon were shared in the previous session. Now I would just refer to the main uses of semicolon. A semicolon is used to refer to bigger categories and to separate them from other bigger categories when within those bigger categories there are smaller categories that are separated with the help of commas. The second use of a semicolon that is very frequent is that to bring 2 small sentences together, a semicolon is used. A semicolon in that case is used when 2 small sentences deal with the same idea or the same thought but present 2 different aspects of the same thought. In that case, the full stop between the 2 sentences is removed, which means the full stop at the end of the first sentence is removed and it is replaced with a semicolon. Thus, both the sentences become clauses of one longer sentence. So this was the learning that we did in the previous session. In today's session, we would learn a few more punctuation marks. The punctuation marks that we would learn and that we would learn the rules how to use them are a colon, question mark, exclamation or exclamation mark, quotation marks, parentheses. Remember, parentheses are also called small brackets, apostrophe, hyphen and dash, ellipses, marks. We would go through all these punctuation marks one by one, and we would see how certain rules are applied when these punctuation marks are to be used in the writing of English. So we would start with the use of the first punctuation mark, that is a colon. As you can see, a colon is indicated with the help of two dots. Please compare this symbol with a semicolon. A semicolon was a comma with a dot on its top. And I repeat, a colon is indicated with the help of two dots. Now the question arises, how to use a colon? There are certain rules for using a colon in the writing of English. Let us share the first rule. Rule number 1 for the use of colon is that use the colon after a complete sentence to introduce a list of items. It means when there is a list of items that has more than one items in it, and that list is a part of the sentence, an ongoing sentence, you use a colon before that list. In this case, a colon is a replacement of words such as namely, for example, that is, etc. Let me give you some examples of this. Look at the first example. When you join the camp, bring some basic items: edibles, sleeping bags, heaters, and warm clothing. Now, notice the punctuation used in the sentence. When you join the camp, bring some basic items, colon, that is two dots. And then a list of items is provided. Edibles, comma, sleeping bags, comma, heaters, comma, and warm clothing, full stop. Now the full stop indicates the completion of the sentence. Commas are used to separate these basic items from each other. But if you notice, the colon is used to give the list of these basic items. So basically, the writer had two options. One option was the writer could have written, or the user could have said, when you join the camp, bring some basic items, full stop. However, in this case, the user of this sentence has decided to give details of basic items. So, the details of basic items are added after the phrase basic items. And then all the basic items are enlisted. You, I'm sure, would be familiar with the use of colon in traditional conservative writing of English, where you would always find sentences and structures like this. For example, please, when you join the camp, bring some basic items, colon, and then the writer would go on to the next line, and a list of items would be created, one item given on each line. However, this is another way of using a colon, where within the same sentence, after giving a colon, you can generate the list of items. Look at another example. I want the following items, colon, papers, pens and pencils. Now, in this case, the writer has both the options open. One option is, as it is given here in the same ongoing sentence, I want the following items, colon, and then the items that he wants or she wants are given. Those are pen, paper and pencil, of course. The other possibility of writing this can be, I want the following items, colon, and then moving on to the next line of the paper and giving the items papers, pens and pencils on the preceding lines, one item on each line. Another possibility of writing by using a colon when some items are to be mentioned or listed is given in the third example. Look at the example. I need a cook who can cook the following food: 1 continental, 2 Chinese and 3 Italian. In this case, you can see that numeration is used, numbers are used to mention the items of food that are to be listed. So these different possibilities of numbering or placing or listing items can be used with the help of a colon within a sentence or by placing items on a list after the colon. With this, I move on to rule number 2. The list you create after a colon, you may or may not use capitalization for it. Now I am talking about the list that is created. The items that are given in that list, it is your choice whether you want to give the initial letters of these items as capital letters or not. In the same way, punctuation is optional when using single words or phrases in bulleted form. Now look at the examples. I hope examples would make it more clear. Example number 1 is, I need a cook who can cook the following food: 1 continental, 2 Chinese, 3 Italian. Please notice the use of capitalization in the case of this example. C for continental and Chinese both is capitalized. In the same way, I for Italian is capitalized, which means that punctuation, that not only after a colon you can use punctuation as your option, but also you can use capitalization as an option. In this example, both punctuation and capitalization are used as options, because you can notice the use of commas after continental and Chinese, and you can also notice the use of a full stop at the end of the last word, that is Italian. The other possibility of presenting the same information with the help of a colon is, I need a cook who can cook the following food: colon, continental, number 2 Chinese, number 3 Italian. In this case, you can see I have opted for capitalization of C for continental and Chinese and I for Italian, but I have not used the punctuation marks, I have not used commas or full stop. In some cases where proper nouns are not mentioned, you can also make a choice of non-capitalization. If you notice here, the words like Italian and Chinese, because they are proper nouns, they have to be capitalized. But for example, if you have a sentence that says, I need a geometry box that has following items: 1 pen, 2 paper, 3 pencil. In this case, all the 3 P's that are used for pen, paper and pencil can either be capitalized or they can be non-capitalized. You can leave them in regular writing without capitalizing them. I would also like to share one more example with you. See this example. There are some of the rules of camping. Colon. 1. Do not lit fire near a camp. 2. If you see something unusual, comma, report it. full stop. 3. Have fun, exclamation mark. This example actually displays and exhibits a variety of use of punctuation marks within the sentence where a colon is used. You can notice after the colon the rules that are given, they are not one word rules, they are not small constructions, they are comparatively longer constructions. For example, do not lit fire near a camp. Since it is a complete sentence, a full stop is used after that. In the second rule, if you see something unusual, comma, report it. You would see again a conditional sentence is used, and the rules of conditional sentence are followed in the use of punctuation as well, because you can notice the use of a comma after the word unusual and the use of a full stop after report it. When the third rule of camping is given, that is have fun, an exclamation mark is added that shows emotions, feelings attached to the fun. So these are the details of rule 2 of using a colon. Students, now I would explain rule number 3 for you, that is to be applied when a colon is to be used in certain contexts. A colon can be used between two sentences. Use a colon instead of a semicolon between two sentences in the case when no coordinating conjunction is used to connect these sentences, and the second sentence is an explanation of the first sentence. Now this might sound a bit confusing to you because I already have shared one rule regarding the use of semicolon for joining two sentences in the previous session. I would try to explain a bit on it so that it becomes clear to you. First, look at the example that is given for the use of a colon to bring two sentences together. Look at the example. I like Chinese food, colon, egg fried rice are my favorite, full stop. The writer could have created two small separate sentences. Sentence 1, I like Chinese food. Sentence 2, egg fried rice are my favorite. However, the writer has opted to bring these two together. Again, the first rule for bringing them together is that they deal with the same theme. They deal with the same idea. The second rule here for the use of colon in this case is that the second sentence is an explanation of the first sentence. Look at the second sentence. Egg fried rice are my favorite. This part is actually an explanation of what? I like Chinese food. So after telling I like Chinese food, basically the writer tries to explain, to give additional information on what particular Chinese food he or she likes. Please compare this rule with the rule of using a semicolon. If you can recall, I gave you one example of Kashmir. When I explained the use of a semicolon, I said, for example, there are two sentences. Sentence 1, Kashmir is beautiful, full stop. Sentence 2, Kashmir is a heaven, full stop. These two sentences can be brought together by using a semicolon, that is a dot and a comma. Why? Because both the sentences deal with the same idea or the same thought, and each of these sentences deals with a different aspect of the same idea or the same thought. If you compare this rule of semicolon to the rule that we are currently learning, that is the rule for bringing two sentences together with the help of a colon, you can notice that one part of the rule is a shared rule between the use of semicolon and colon, that is that both the sentences have to be related to the same idea, thought or theme. However, the second part of the rule is different. It varies for the use of a semicolon and a colon. In the case of a colon, the second part of the sentence or the second sentence that is made the second clause of the longer sentence by using a colon, it should be an explanation of the first sentence or the first clause that is used in the longer sentence. I hope you are clear about the use of colon for bringing two sentences together. With this, I bring you to the next rule, that is rule number 4 for the use of a colon. To use the colon to introduce a direct quotation that is of more than 40 words or 3 lines in length. In this case, quotation marks are not used. Well, this rule is very important when you are quoting something, when you are taking the exact words of some speaker or writer and you are using them in your text when you are writing them. I have given one example here. Let me read the example for you. Example. Mehboob and Ahmad 2004, page 1003, encapsulate the whole journey of English in the subcontinent as. Please notice the use of a colon here. Then notice that whatsoever is said by Mehboob and Ahmad in their work of 2004 on page number 1003, I have quoted that, and that quotation begins from a new line. Also notice I have indented it from the left side. You also need to notice that this quotation is of more than 40 words or more than 3 lines. Another thing that you need to notice about this quotation is that I have not used inverted commas around this quotation. I have not enclosed this quotation between two sets of inverted commas. Thus, this whole text, English was first introduced in the Indo-Pak subcontinent by the British in the 16th century, full stop. It received official recognition with the passing of Macaulay's Minutes of 1835, full stop. Throughout the British era, comma, English kept gaining political and social status, full stop. By 1947, comma, when Pakistan and India gained their independence from the British, comma, the English language had become so entrenched in the socio-political fabric of the region that it was retained as an official language in both the countries, full stop. The whole text that I have taken is given in one go. The punctuation marks as they were used in the original text from where I have taken it are retained in the same way. They are used in the same way. Only the preamble is set, that is, I have set the background of this quotation by using my own words, and I have used a colon where I started this quotation. With this, I take you to the next rule of the use of a colon. Rule number 5 for the use of a colon is that a colon is used to follow the salutation of a business letter even when addressing someone by his or her first name. Note, do not use a semicolon after a salutation. However, for personal correspondence, a comma is used after the salutation. Here I have an example for you. For example, the name of a person is Raza Ahmed. You can use the following 2 ways of writing it. Dear Mr. Raza, colon. Dear Mr. Ahmed, colon. You can notice In one of these examples, I have used the first name of the person. In the other example, I have used the last name of the person, and both the ways are considered correct. Dear students, so far we have learnt 5 rules of using a colon. Mainly a colon is used when a detail or explanation of something that has already been talked about is given. With this, we move onwards to the next punctuation mark. The next punctuation mark and the rules related to that punctuation mark that we would learn now is a question mark. We all are well familiar with the symbol of a question mark. It is indicated on your screen as well. The use of a question mark has certain rules, and the rules are not very complicated. The first rule that is to be used when a question mark is to be applied is use a question mark when there is a direct question. So when you report direct speech or when you write something in direct speech, you use a question mark at the end of a question. Please look at the examples that are given. Example number 1, will you do this task? Question mark. Now, the person whosoever said this, whosoever uttered this, or whosoever wrote this, these are exactly his words, and these are directly given here. This is a direct question. That is why a question mark is used at the end. However, if the same question is to be reported by somebody else, in that case, the question mark is to be removed. Please notice the second example. He asked if I would do that task. Full stop. He asked if I would do that task. Now, will you do this task is being reported by somebody else. Here, he reported what was said by somebody else. So when he reports that, he asked if I would do that task. In this case, you can notice it is not a direct question, it is reporting somebody's question. So in that case, a question mark is not to be used. The second rule for the use of a question mark is when there is a tag question, use a question mark. In this case, a sentence is half statement and half question. Let me explain this for you. I would use the following example to explain this. Look at the example. Example number 1. You like it, don't you? Question mark. Notice the first part of this sentence is a statement, you like it. And the second half or the second part of this sentence is a question, don't you? So a question mark is used. I would briefly explain the term tag question for you. Actually, this kind of phrasing, don't you, isn't it, aren't you, haven't you, didn't I, etc. These kinds of phrases are very frequently used as tag questions by adding them to the statements. Native speakers of English use them frequently, and the purpose of them is to reiterate, to emphasize and to involve the listener. Most of the times when these phrases are used, they are not used in the literal sense of the words or the phrase itself. Rather, they just perform the communication task. Look at the second example as well. This book is very interesting, isn't it? So when somebody comments on a book as this book is very interesting, and then involves the listener, involves the other person in what he or she has said, he or she can use isn't it as a tag question to that. In these cases where half of the sentence is a statement and the rest of the half is a question, where a tag question is created, a question mark is used at the end. So these were the two simple rules that I have shared with reference to the use of a question mark. Now I am bringing you to the use of exclamation mark. Exclamation mark is shown with the help of a line that has a dot at the bottom. This mark is used to express feelings and emotions, and I would share a few rules related to this. The rules for the use of exclamation mark are following. The first rule is exclamation mark is used to show emphasis or surprise. The first rule, I repeat, is that exclamation mark is used to show emphasis or surprise. Dear students, let me share the rules of the use of exclamation mark with you. The first rule for the use of exclamation mark is that it is used to show emphasis or surprise. The second rule is exclamation marks are not used in formal or official writing. The simple reason for that is because exclamation marks show feelings or they express emotions. They stand for feelings, emotions, and emotional reactions. That is why they are not used in formal situations. They are not used in official or business writing. They are not used in formal academic writing as well, until and unless you are writing something that has to have some use of real life language or some instances of oral communication. Another rule related to the use of exclamation mark is that an exclamation mark can be used after a single word or at the end of a sentence construction. So this rule gives us a freedom to use an exclamation mark at the end of a single word or a complete phrase or even a complete sentence. Please look at the examples that I have given here for you. Hurrah! Aha! Please notice the use of exclamation mark. Hurrah and aha both showing joy, happiness, excitement, and aha also for surprise. This exclamation mark refers to or indicates these emotions or these feelings. Look at the next example. I'm shocked by your behavior. And an exclamation mark is given. Dear students, please notice when I utter it in two ways for you. I am shocked by your behavior. I am shocked by your behavior. Now, in the first case, I did not put stress on any of the words in this sentence, and I uttered it in a monotone to represent the writing pattern. Now, no emotion was shown through that, but in the second case, when I uttered it, I said, I'm shocked by your behavior. Now, I'm shocked by your behavior. I tried to show the shock through the stress, unstress, and intonation patterns, the rise and fall of my voice. Dear students, when it comes to writing, you cannot show your emotions, feelings through stress, unstress, or intonation because it is a written communication. In that case, exclamation mark comes to help. And if I'm shocked by your behavior ends up with a full stop, it would represent my first way of saying that where it was monotoned. But if I use a if I use an exclamation mark at the end of this, it represents my second way of saying that where I expressed the shock through my intonation and stress and stress patterns. There are two more examples. What are you doing? Oh my God. And both the exclamation marks, they refer to the expressions of feelings, emotions related to what is said. I hope these rules are clear that I have talked about with reference to the use of exclamation mark. With this, we move on to another punctuation mark or marker, that is quotation marks. Quotation marks are shown on the screen. Quotation marks, as you can see, are a set of double inverted commas that are used to enclose something, some text that is to be quoted. Let us look at the rules of the use of quotation marks. Rule number 1 for the use of quotation marks is that use quotation marks for a direct quotation only. I am sure you would have learnt the use of direct and indirect speech at the early stages of your learning at school. So the use of quotation marks is pretty much a representation of the same rule here. Look at the example. Will you attend the party? He asked. Now, inverted commas that are used, two sets of commas that are used in this sentence here, they clearly show that these are the words uttered by he. These are his exact words. The same thing if it would be given in indirect speech, when it would be reported in indirect speech, inverted commas cannot be used. Look at the example. He asked if I would attend the party. So in this case, inverted commas are not to be used. Rule 2. Rule 2 for the use of quotation marks is that do not use quotation marks with quoted material that is more than 40 words or 3 lines in length. Please try to recall the example that I gave to you with reference to the use of certain rules for colon. If you remember, I used a small paragraph as a quoted material that I gave after a colon. So, if you notice, even there I did not use quotation marks because the quoted material was more than 3 lines or 40 words. If you cannot remember, you can go back to that slide and you can have a look at that. With this, I come to the third rule for the use of quotation marks. Place full stops always inside quotation marks. He said, you need to complete the project. This is an example. The next rule is when you have two questions together in a sentence, that is a question outside the quoted material and a question inside the quoted material, use only one question mark. I repeat the rule. When you have two questions together in a sentence, that is a question outside the quoted material and a question inside the quoted material. In that case, use only one question mark. In this case, the question mark will be placed outside the quotation mark. Please notice the example. Did he say, may I leave? Now, did he say, even this part is also a question form, but question mark is not to be used for that. A question mark is only to be used for the second part, that is, may I leave? That is also a question form. So when there are two question forms, the question mark is to be used only for the second one. Now I am going to share rule number 5 related to the use of question marks, and the rule is there is a certain way of using quotation marks for quotes within quotes. Use single quotation marks for quotes within quotes. Look at the example. The example says, he said, Akram said, don't spoil the project. Now, the utterance, do not spoil the project, was said by Akram originally. Here, this person, he, is directly reporting what Akram said. So, you can notice the use of quotation marks. He said, comma, quotation mark start, Akram said, comma, and a single inverted comma begins, do not spoil the project. The full stop, the single inverted comma closes to show the original utterance of Akram, and then double inverted commas close to show that whatsoever he has directly reported is completed here. So this is the way of using quotation marks or quotation marks within quotes when there is a need to use them twice. For one time they would be used with single quote marks, for the second time they would be used with double quote marks. Dear students, so far you have learned some rules for the use of quotation marks. Here are some more uses of quotation marks that I would like to share with you. You can use quotation marks to indicate a unique, unusual or ironic use of a word. I repeat, when a word is used in a different, unusual, unique or ironic way, or it is used in a satirical context, then you can use quotation marks to make it prominent. This is a way of giving emphasis on the word. Look at the example. Autocracy in the name of people is called democracy. I repeat, autocracy in the name of people is called democracy. Here you can notice the use of double inverted commas around the word democracy, because democracy here is used in an unusual and ironic way. The writer has used it satirically to comment on the status of autocracy in relation to democracy. You can also use quotation marks around the titles of pieces of literature, art, song titles, names of magazines or newspaper articles. You also can use quotation marks for the names or titles of essays, speeches, chapter titles, short films, television or radio shows, etc. I have given two very simple examples here for you. Example number one is Othello by Shakespeare. Othello, inverted commas. It is enclosed in double inverted commas. Othello by Shakespeare. Second example, when you are, for example, referring to a television talk show, Capital Talk by Hamid Mir. Capital Talk is given in double inverted commas or in quotation marks. So we have learned different uses of quotation marks. We have also seen in which cases quotation marks are not to be used. Mainly quotation marks are used when direct speech of a speaker is to be presented. Please remember, quotation marks are also sometimes called speech marks. So, when the term speech marks is used for quotation marks, do not get confused. Speech marks is a term that is used as an equivalent for, as a substitute for the term quotation marks. And with this we move on to the next punctuation mark, that is parenthesis. Parentheses, you can see the symbol on the screen. Parentheses are also called small brackets. There are certain uses of small brackets. Some general uses of small brackets or parentheses are given here. Number one, parentheses are used to emphasize content. If you can recall, in the previous session on punctuation, I gave you 3 examples where I replaced commas with brackets and then with dashes for the same sentence, and I talked about that. For refreshing your memory, you can go back to that example. However, brackets are used when you want to place more emphasis on the enclosed material or content than commas. So, for example, if in a sentence where you are using an interrupter or you're giving some additional information that you want to emphasize, you can either use 2 commas on both the sides of it, or 2 dashes, or 2 brackets for that. However, the use of brackets is preferred when you want to give more emphasis on that presented information. A rule that I would like to share with reference to the use of parentheses is that parentheses or small brackets are used to enclose numbers or letters when listed items are given. Example, we need a research assistant who can, number 1, collect data, comma, number 2, enter it, comma, and number 3, analyze it systematically. Now, in this case, brackets are used to number the 3 aspects of work for which a research assistant is required. This use of brackets around 1, 2, and 3 numbers not only emphasizes the importance of these 3 aspects that are given, but also adds to the clarity in the written form of this text. Rule 2 for the use of parentheses is that a very important use of parentheses can be by using it to show words or figures that are added to clarify, to provide some additional information, or that are used as an aside. Please look at the examples. Example number 1 says, I will pay you $100. And then within parentheses, $100 is written in numbers. The word dollars is represented with its symbol, and the numbers 100 are used to mention 100. Look at the second example. The subordinate finally answered, bracket starts, after a long pause that seemed like ages, bracket closes, that he did not understand the task, full stop. If you look at this example, you would notice the writer could have originally said, the subordinate finally answered that he did not understand the task, full stop. This could have been the main idea that the writer could have mentioned here. However, the writer opted to provide some additional information. This additional information is more like an aside in this case, and that information is given within parentheses. It is inserted within the sentence by using 2 small brackets. That is why the sentence goes like, the subordinate finally answered, bracket starts, after a long pause that seemed like ages, the bracket closes, that he didn't understand the task. Notice whatsoever is said within the bracket, that is, after a long pause that seemed like ages. This part, after a long pause that seemed like ages, is actually the thought of the writer of this sentence, the author of this sentence, that he has shared with the reader. So it is an aside or an additional information. Here I have given the example of a sentence with the help of different punctuation marks. how this additional information can be provided with different options of the use of punctuation marks. Please look at these examples. Example number 1 is, my brother dash, a computer engineer dash, fixed my computer, full stop. In this case, what has happened, the author or the writer of this sentence originally wants to say, my brother fixed my computer. However, he or she has decided to provide some additional information about the brother. And what is that information? That the brother is a computer engineer. So this additional information, a computer engineer, is added, it is inserted in the sentence by using 2 dashes. The same can be presented with the help of 2 commas. Please notice the placement of these commas. These commas are to be placed on the line itself. The third option of presenting that information is by using a set of small brackets, that is by using parentheses. This information can be provided. Look at the last example, my brother, small bracket begins, a computer engineer, small bracket closes, fixed my computer, full stop. Even you can notice that visually the last example is more prominent, and the additional information that is given, a computer engineer, is more emphasized visually when it is given within 2 brackets. My dear students, it is to remember, a full stop is placed inside parentheses only if a complete sentence is inside the parentheses. I repeat, only in the case if a complete sentence is inside the parentheses, only in that case you would use a full stop within the parentheses. Look at these 2 examples, that would make it very much clear to you. Example number 1 is, please read the report on the project. Full stop, bracket starts. I have enclosed it as attachment A. Bracket closes. Now notice the use of the brackets. The full stop comes after attachment A and it falls within the parenthesis. In the second example, please read the report. Bracket starts, attachment A, bracket closes, full stop. In this case, since whatsoever is given within the parenthesis, that is attachment A, that is not a complete sentence, that is why the full stop does not fall within the parenthesis, it falls outside the parenthesis. It is given after the bracket is closed. Thus, we can conclude about the use of parentheses or small brackets that they are mainly used to enclose additional information. One more punctuation mark that is important for the users of English, and most of the times the non-native users of English use it incorrectly, is apostrophe. I would show you how an apostrophe is to be used in the written English texts. Rule number 1 for the use of apostrophe is that use the apostrophe with contractions. We always use apostrophe at the spot where some letter or letters have been removed. Look at the examples because the examples would make it clear to you. Don't, doesn't, isn't, aren't. Now, instead of do not, does not, is not, or are not, contractions are used where some letters are omitted. Actually, in all these 4 cases, O is omitted from not, and an apostrophe is used by creating these contractions: don't, doesn't, isn't, aren't. Same rule applies for the creation of other contractions. Look at another variety of creating contractions that I have given in example 2. The example is, you are wrong, she's right. You are instead of are, A-R-E-R, the contracted form is used where A is removed, A from the word are is removed, and instead of you are, your is created. A contraction is created with the help of an apostrophe. Same is done with she is right. Instead of is, by removing the letter I from is, a contraction is created. So, you are wrong, she's right. Please notice all these uses of apostrophe for creating contractions are always used in informal writing. They are not used in formal, official or business writing. They are not also used in formal academic writing until and unless you are writing some dialogue, or you are quoting some direct speech, or you are representing some examples of oral communication instances. The last example that I would like to share in this regard is, he's a great manager. Again, instead of he is, his is used by using an apostrophe. With this, we move on to the next rule. Another use of apostrophe is that you can use the apostrophe where the noun is given that should follow is implied. I hope the example that I have given would make it clear to you. The example says, this was his father's, not his opinion. Now look at the use of apostrophe, father's, the possessive. This was his father's, not his opinion. What the writer wants to say is, this was his father's opinion, not his opinion. However, instead of using the word opinion, using the noun opinion twice in the sentence, what the author has done is, he or she has omitted, has skipped the use of the noun for the first time when the word father occurs, and a contraction is used, apostrophe is used. This was his father's, comma, not his, comma, opinion. Originally the sentence would mean, this was his father's opinion, not his opinion. That is the other way of putting it. Rule number 3 regarding the use of apostrophe is, use the apostrophe to show possession. In case of singular possession, as an S is added and the apostrophe is placed before the S to show singular possession. Examples, a boy's coat, a child's food. So singular nouns are used. You can see singular subjects are used where the possession is to be shown. For the boy and for the child, we have used a comma and S, apostrophe S, to show possession. A boy's coat, a child's food, a mother's child, etc. Rule number 4 that is to be learned with reference to the use of apostrophe is, when you want to show plural possession, make the noun plural first. Then immediately use the apostrophe. Following are the examples. 2 girls' hats, 2 men's hats. Please notice the use of apostrophe in these 2 examples. In the first example, the possession for the noun girl is to be shown. First, the plural for the noun girl is made, that is girls. For this plural possession now, comma, that is apostrophe, is added after the S. Please remember, a girl's hat and 2 girls' hats. Here the use of apostrophe would be completely different. When you are referring to a singular possession, the apostrophe is to be given after the L of girl and before S. That means one girl's possession. That means possession of one girl. It refers to one girl, singular noun. Whereas when you refer to girls as plural, 2 girls or 3 girls or 5 girls, in that case apostrophe, that comma, is to be placed there after the plural marker S. Here GIRLS, and then an apostrophe would be given, which means possession shown for more than one girls. Sometimes plurals are made by not using S. For example, men, men, women, women. In those cases, how you would use apostrophe? Look at the example: 2 men's hats. 2 men's hats. Apostrophe S. Look at the other 2 examples as well to add further clarity. 2 actresses' hats. The plural of actress, actresses, and then an apostrophe would be added after that. The same rule as was followed in the case of girls. 2 children's hats. Plural children, that is made from the singular child, and then apostrophe S is used. The same rule is followed as was followed for man and men, where man's hat, a man's hat, or 2 men's hats were created. I hope the rule is clear to you. Now I come to rule number 5 with reference to the use of apostrophe. The rule says, with a singular compound noun, show possession with comma S, that is apostrophe S, at the end of the word. Look at the example: my brother-in-law's car. The example is very simple. Brother-in-law is a compound noun and the same rule is followed. A comma followed apostrophe followed by S is used in this case. 6th rule in this regard is, when the compound noun is a plural, from the plural first, and then you form the plural first and then use the apostrophe. So when you have to use a compound noun as a plural, what you are supposed to do is that first you would make the compound noun plural, and then to that plural you would add apostrophe if you want to show possession. Look at the example: my 2 brothers-in-law's houses are situated on this street. Now, brother-in-law, a singular compound. Brothers-in-law is a plural compound. Here I would also like to correct the common error where most of the times the non-native speakers of English, when they make plural of brother-in-law, they would make it brother-in-laws. That is incorrect. The plural for brother-in-law would be brothers-in-law. In the same way, sister-in-law, sisters-in-law, father-in-law, fathers-in-law. Now you have to show possession, that brothers-in-law have the possession of the houses in this street. Now how to show that? After brothers-in-law, that is the plural compound noun, you would use an apostrophe S. The example thus says, my 2 brothers-in-laws, that is by using apostrophe S. My 2 brothers-in-laws' houses are situated on this street. Here I am sharing rule number 7 with reference to the use of apostrophe. Use the apostrophe and S after the second name only if 2 people possess the same item. It might sound confusing to you, however, let me explain it to you with the help of some example. Please look at the examples. The first example says, Sarah's and Amna's project contracts will be renewed next year. Sarah's and Amna's project contracts will be renewed next year. Please notice the use of apostrophe and S. I have used it with both Sara and Amna. Sara's, that is Sara apostrophe S, and Amna apostrophe S. And then the rest of the sentence, project contracts will be renewed next year. When I am using this apostrophe and S with both of the subjects of the sentence, with both the names, it indicates separate ownership. What I mean by the sentence is that Sara's project contract will be renewed next year and Amna's project contract will be renewed next year, and I also mean that Sara has her own and Amna has own separate project contract. Their projects are different. But when I write the same in this way, Sara and Amna's project contracts will be renewed next year. Please notice the use of apostrophe. Sara, I haven't used any apostrophe. Sara and Amna's project contracts will be renewed next year. I have used an apostrophe with Amna. In this case, what I mean is Sara and Amna's project contracts will be renewed next year. It indicates joint ownership of more than one contracts. The word contracts is used in the sentence, which means they have more than one contract. However, when I do not use an apostrophe with Sara and only with Amna I have used an apostrophe, what does it imply? It implies that more than one projects are there that Sara and Amna have, but they are combined projects, they are joint ownership of both, and those projects, each one of those projects is of Sara and Amna both, and they are going to be renewed next year. So you can see, just by adding or removing apostrophe with one of the names or nouns in the case of showing possession of the same item makes a difference in the meaning of the sentence. Here is rule number 8, my dear students. Rule number 8 says, never use an apostrophe with possessive pronouns. His, hers, its, theirs, ours, yours, whose. They already show possession, so they do not require an apostrophe. Look at the examples, please. I have given some examples of correct usage and some examples of incorrect usage. This notebook is hers, not yours. Notice the use of hers and yours. Here apostrophe is not used, comma is not used before S in each case. Look at the second example, that is an example of incorrect use. Sincerely yours. This sincerely yours is a common error that most of us make while writing applications or letters. Yours does not have to have an apostrophe here, rather it is to be written as it is shown in the next example, the correct example, sincerely yours, S without an apostrophe. I have also given another incorrect example, yours truly, with the use of apostrophe, that is the use of a comma before S. And I'm sure by now you understand that it is to be written as yours truly, where yours is to be written as Y-O-U-R-S. Notice, without the use of any apostrophe. This is its correct use. My dear students, with this I bring you to the use of hyphen. How to use a hyphen? To check whether a compound noun is two words, one word, or hyphenated, you may need to look it up in a dictionary. If you can't find the word in the dictionary, treat the noun as separate words. Examples: eyewitness, eyeshadow, eye opener. Please notice how I have written each one of these. Eyewitness as one word, eyeshadow as two separate words, and eye opener with the help of hyphen I have made a compound noun. Second rule is all compound numbers from 21 to 99 are hyphenated. For example, the manager had 48 workers in his team. Look at the use of hyphen in 48. In the same way, hyphenate all spelled out fractions. By the way, use of hyphen in spelled out as a compound is also to be noticed. Look at the example of use of hyphen in spelled out fractions. Example is, add 1/4 of a cup of sugar in the flour. So if you are following a recipe, if you are writing a recipe, or if you are giving a recipe to somebody, when you mention 1/4, a hyphen is to be used between 1 and 4th to show that spelled out fraction. Also, hyphenate between two or more adjectives when they come before a noun and act as a single idea. Look at the example, friendly looking man. Compound adjective in front of a noun. This is what the example is. With this, I bring you to learning the rules of the use of dashes. The use of dashes is not very complicated. It has some simple rules that I am going to share with you. Basically, there are two types of dashes. Generally, they are called an N dash and an M dash. An N dash is named for the width of a typewriter's N key. It is a little longer than a hyphen. It is used for span of time when you might otherwise use to. So it is a substitute or a replacement for the word to. So the years 2010 to 2012, this to is mentioned with the help of an N dash. In the same way, from January to July, so the word July is replaced with an N dash. On the other hand, an M dash is a longer dash than an N dash. It is named for the width of a typesetter's M key. It is used for additional emphasis. If you can recall, I gave you some examples where brackets, commas or dashes can be used. So this is the dash that I was talking about there. Look at the example. You are my child, the only child, so I love you very much. Full stop. You are my child, so I love you very much. This is the original sentence. However, some additional information for emphasis is provided in somewhere in between the sentence by splitting the sentence and by inserting the additional information, the only child. The only child is shown with the help of two dashes, two M dashes that are used to enclose this information, the only child. So I repeat that an M dash is longer than an N dash. It is named after the width of a typesetter's M key. Please do not use it just because you are uncertain about correct punctuation. In formal writing, M dashes can replace commas, semicolons, colons and parentheses to indicate added or additional emphasis, or to show an interruption or an abrupt change of thought where the writer abruptly shifts from one thought to the other. Here is an example. You can look at the example. You are the friend, the only friend who offered to help me. My dear students, with this I bring you to the ellipsis marks that are shown with the help of 3 dots. There is a simple rule for the use of ellipses. The 3-dot method is used as ellipsis marks. It is used when you want to show that the omission occurs in the middle of a sentence or between sentences. Basically, this is used when you are quoting something and something long is to be referred to, but you do not want to mention certain part of it. So for example, if there is a very long sentence of 75 words that you want to quote, however there are 12 to 15 words somewhere in the sentence that you do not want to quote because they are not relevant. For that part you would only use these 3 dots. You would skip that part and would continue with the rest of the part of the sentence. In the same way, when you are quoting a small paragraph or you are quoting more than 2 sentences at a time and you want to skip some sentence in between, what you can do is at that point you can use ellipsis marks, that is 3 dots, to indicate that some part is skipped because it was not found relevant. And then you can continue with the rest of the sentences that you want to quote. My dear students, with this we come to an end of learning the rules of using certain punctuation marks. The summary of what we have learned today is that we have learned the use of colon, we have also learned the use of a question mark and an exclamation mark. I also shared with you how quotation marks and parentheses are used in written English. Rules related to apostrophe, hyphen, dash and ellipsis marks are also shared with you. I've tried to give you examples of the use of these rules and of the application of these punctuation marks in written English, and I hope that you would have learned these use of punctuation marks with the help of rules further need some practice. If you try to generate more examples based on the examples that I have given to you, I hope it would add to your clarity on the use of punctuation. Thank you very much.